Okay, thanks everyone for attending this evening. This is the sixth and the final online Q&A and information session that the RMIT Mechanical and Automotive Association is hosting. We've put on these events throughout the lockdown period to continue to provide our members and RMIT students in general those industry connections and industry knowledge to hopefully make you find your career path. Today, we have two guests from the RMIT International Industry Experience and Research Program. I might have skipped a letter, but it's RIIERP for short. We are joined by Adam, who is the Global Program Coordinator, and he is the one who is behind all the admin with RIIERP. We have Theerapong, who is a recently returned RIIERP student, and I'll also be providing some information as well, as I'm also a past RIIERP student. So I'll pass it over to Adam now, who will just introduce the RIIERP program and the application process as well.
Wonderful. Thanks everyone for coming. Thanks for the invite for coming to this talk. I'll just quickly share my screen. I want to fly through these slides only because I like to have a lot of questions and engagement later. So yeah, if you want these slides, I'll drop in my email address in the chat box. So yeah, don't worry about taking notes and have a little questions ready. So let's have a go. Let's see if we can present this. And sure. All right, cool. So before I start, I always like to click into it. Do an acknowledgement of country. So this is my Budagiri statement. I would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians and their ancestors of the lands and waters across Australia, especially the Woiwurrung and Boonwurrung language groups of the Eastern Kulin Nations. I'd also like to acknowledge both the native and first peoples of the unceded lands I grew up on between Australia and Canada, in which have given me the opportunities that were not shared with the people before me. I would like to acknowledge the past and present ancestors, custodians, and traditional owners of the lands, while paying respect to the communities and emerging leaders of today. So once again, thanks so much for coming to the session and also inviting me to do this talk. What is RIIERP? RIIERP, in a nutshell, it's a big acronym. All you have to remember is RMIT, International Industry Experience and Research Program. It actually started a long time ago, roughly 25 years ago, and it's actually run and founded by Professor Sylvester Abantirba. Old school professor, set in his ways. He's a great guy with great connections. Long story short, he actually studied in Germany, and he made a lot of friends. And then he moved to Australia and started teaching at RMIT. But he still kept those friendships and those connections. A lot of those friends moved on to industry, and they started to have these projects and internships. And they would, contact each other and say, hey, you're teaching. Do you have any, switched on students that may want to work on this type of project, this type of engine, or this type of area? And he'd look at his, students and go, oh, I could send this student. Long story short, he started to send one student, then 3, then 10, then 50. 1 year, this is before my time, he was sending out roughly 150 students a year. Right now, we're averaging roughly 75 students, and knowing into the future, and with COVID-19, we may even get a smaller amount. I didn't put a COVID slide in here, but I'll touch base on that later in the presentation. Cool, so yeah, it really started very small, and it grew into a wonderful program, and we send a lot of students all across the world. But these are the specific goals of the RIIERP program. In a nutshell, it's really about getting you the skills and getting you an industry. But flipping it, we also want to litmus test students, how they're going in the real world. This is an RMIT program. You do get enrolled in an RMIT course. You get assessed by RMIT. But at the same time, you also get assessed by your supervisor. And that supervisor assessment gets actually shared with the professor. And he looks at whatever is being taught at RMIT is still relevant in the real world. And that's what's really good about the RIIERP program. It's a two-way street. It's about getting you guys exposed, putting you in a professional environment, but also seeing how we're going as a university and how we teach and how we are accepted in the real world. So yeah, those are the goals of the RIIERP program. It's really about getting you the experience and seeing how you guys go. Cool, these are our global destinations. As you can see, it is highly orientated to Europe. And the main reason is visas. Visas are a pain, especially work visas. Any RIIERP student can swear by it. I bet Theerapong and Harrison could agree. It is paperwork over paperwork over paperwork. Unfortunately, with RMIT, we're actually not allowed to give you official visa advice. We always have to say you need to talk to the consulates because that information always changes. But what's really good is the professor actually will guide you and give you the right paperwork and tell you what steps to follow. So there's something to keep in mind when you do apply for this program. Do look into the visa requirements, but don't worry about them now. Only worry about if you do get an acceptance in the program and you get the go-ahead from the professor. These are the past global organizations we've sent students to in the past roughly 25 years. As you can see, very STEM focused and very much in this clubs area. We do send a lot of students to FEV in the US. I'm looking at my past cohort of students. I want to throw out some names. These are the ones that I've been helping out with students. Rolls-Royce, Bosch, Continental, Airbus Defence and Space, Siemens, Fujitsu, Daimler, Ariane Group, FEV, Tessa, EDOM, Genova. These are Spanish ones. Stackpole, and Easy IC. Unfortunately, with these types of internships and these placements, we actually don't know what's available once you apply. With the RIIERP program, you always apply 1 year in advance. The first 6 months, well, roughly is about trying to place you in the program to see you're up to that standard to represent RMIT and to have that professional background. And then what happens next is the professor actually reaches out to his contacts in industry and pretty much test the water to see what projects are available and where they're accepting students. So that's how it works. I want to flick through these 2 slides because it's pretty much the same. So this is postgraduate, undergraduate. As you can see, very similar. There's 2 types of experiences: classic work experience, doing work on the job. And then you get the bachelor thesis project, where you actually would do your thesis project abroad. If you, if you want to do your bachelor thesis abroad, please make sure you disclose this in the application because the professor will need to specifically ask his industry leads to see if there's actually a project that is relevant to your bachelor thesis and your program, your degree, and your program coordinator or degree manager. But most students actually go abroad and they do the work experience. These internships, these placements do range from 6 months to 12 months. A lot of students in the past go for 6 and they actually say, can I extend? So we always recommend if you're gonna go, try and do 12 months. By the time you get to 6 months, you become very comfortable and you definitely would want to stay. Postgraduates, very similar, but you'll notice that the postgraduate research project is 2 to 3 years. This is specifically for PhD students. So most postgraduate students, so masters, would do the graduate traineeship. But if you wanted to do it within PhD, you would definitely need to get permission from your supervisor, as well as disclose that in your application. This doesn't happen very often with the research project. It's mostly the graduate traineeship, the work experience, and the bachelor's thesis project. They're the main 3 popular avenues. Cool. So here are some testimonials. I want to skip through this because we already have 2 students who've done it. They'll talk about their own personal experience with the RIIERP program. But to give you an idea, this was a student that went to Rolls-Royce in the USA, Siemens, Astrium in Germany, and Airbus Defence and Space. Pretty much to sum them, they always said it was an amazing, rewarding experience. And another thing they also do say, it is a lot of paperwork and a lot of legwork to get to the end product going on a RIIERP program. You have to do an application, then you got to do an application, an interview, then it's a waiting game, and then you cross your fingers the professor can find you a project, and then you get all your paperwork, then you apply for your work permit, your visa, then you purchase all your flights, and then you're over there. So yes, it's a lot of work, but it's very rewarding. So this is eligibility criteria, minimum GPA of 2.0, and we're looking for students in their later year of the degree. So we're looking for third year in your 4 or 5 year program, or second year of your 3-year program. If you're undertaking a postgraduate program, you're good to go. We know that you've done an undergrad, so please do apply. And you're also welcome to go as a recent RMIT graduate. The only kicker is you need to apply to the RIIERP program as a current student of RMIT. So if you're planning to graduate at the end of this year or mid-year, you're lucky because the deadline is the 5th of July, 2020. So if you have a student status right now, you will be eligible to apply. What happens is you actually will get enrolled in a single course enrollment, which sits outside of your degree. So if you do graduate and before you start your RIIERP program, we will need to re-enroll you in one extra course. But this course sits outside of your current degree. Cool. So like I said, deadline's on the 5th of July, 2020. I'll chuck in the chat my email address, the MOBI portal, the application portal, and that's where you can get more information. Some things you'll need to submit in your application is a cover letter addressed to Dr. Professor Bantiraba. My biggest tip for everyone here, Professor Bantiraba is an old school academic. Please, please, please do not email him saying, hey, say, dear Professor Bantiraba. It's the biggest tip I can give you. Always refer to him as the professor or Professor Bantiraba. Never by his first name. So definitely upload his CV resume. There's some application documents that you need to complete, and you just need to upload an unofficial academic transcript. So what happens is we'll shortlist you guys. We'll send you an emails to confirm that you are welcome to an interview. We'll look at your academic record, and we'll interview you. Because of COVID-19, we're going to interview over Microsoft or Skype. Cool, so enrollment. Enrollment period will be in the following year of 2021. You get enrolled in a flexible term. So what happens is once your internship is confirmed, I get to see your paperwork. That's when I'll start enrolling you in that MIT 2066, International Industry Experience 2, which is usually 24 credits. That sits in the flexible term. If you're gonna graduate before your RIIERP program, we need to enroll you in that RMIT single course. Cool, when you return to Melbourne, you definitely need to do some assessment tasks. Because this is an RMIT course, there's a company supervisor assessment piece. You don't do that, your direct report does. And you need to submit 3 items: discipline, cultural, and a reflective journal. And then once you get those to the professor or myself, I'll book you in with a slot to do your presentations on your discipline and culture report. Cool. So frequently asked questions about enrollment. It's really based on when you plan to go out. It's always in the flexible term, but it will always overlap from your internship dates. Visas. This is something we get a lot of questions about. If you're an international student and you're thinking about moving to Australia or trying to get PR, please do read the fine print of your current visa to see what restrictions you are about traveling outside of Australia for a certain amount of time. This does vary visa by visa, so do double check if you are wanting to stay in Australia, and also double check if you're a student here in Australia on an international visa, double check when it's going to expire. If you're going to overlap, we highly recommend that you finish your program and then do your RIIERP program, or make sure that you have enough to do a full-time enrollment after your RIIERP program. Oh yeah, the ZAV, the German Federal Employment Agency Agreement. This is for most students that go to Germany. They get this document. It's actually from an agency, and it states that this company is employing you, giving you a salary, and that's what you apply for your full-time, your working permit and residency visa. You can also show that to me once you get it, but this is much later in the RIIERP process. PR, do double check going back to if you want to move to Australia or try and get a PR, do double check the fine print on your current visa about the amounts of time you should be away from Australia. Cool, flew through that. So I'll hand it off to Harrison.
Yeah, thanks, Adam. We'll get to the Q&A at the end. Adam, do you just want to quickly mention that in terms of what students need to pay?
Yeah, what the course fee or the price of going abroad,
In
or
terms of how being successful in this program, disregarding the course fee, how much will students be out of pocket? Do companies pay them?
Yeah, so what's lucky about the REIT program is that the professor, am I mute? No. The professor always will find you a full paid internship program. He actually does not send any students that are not paid. And based on the internship placement and also where you're going, you'll definitely will get a minimum wage at the intern level. It's not a full-fledged salary, but it's a salary that'll get you accommodation and costs covered. So you're not too much out of pocket. You'll definitely will be out of pocket in the beginning. That's with any international travel or accommodation, visas, flights, all of that. But once you get there, you'll start earning an income. Harrison, Theerapong, if you feel comfortable, would you be okay if you disclose how much you got? Just give us a nod. Yeah, cool. So yeah,
I'll
the
discuss
professor
it in my presentation.
Yeah, the professor will never send you unless you actually, especially because you're going for 6 to 12 months. It is not morally right to send you abroad for that amount of period of time to not be a paid intern. So that's something that we try and do. Is the REIT program is always about a global paid internship. That's why sometimes it's really hard to find lots of placements, because we fight to make sure that you do get a salary. So that's another reason why. It's a very popular program.
Okay, and you can see my screen now, Adam?
Yeah.
Perfect. All right, so as Adam mentioned, both myself and Theerapong are returned students. I came back in December 2018, so I was actually I did my RIIERP program before Adam started in his role. So I'm just going to take you through pretty much my journey and just show you some of the experiences that I had over in Germany. And I cannot stress it enough that it was an amazing time. It was absolutely the best experience of my life the time I spent over there. So, okay, so just to begin, these are just some of the countries I visited whilst overseas. I was based in Germany. However, I got to travel to France, which included the 24 hours of Le Mans, Italy, Slovenia, Croatia, Montenegro, and England and Wales. So definitely I went all around Europe in my time there. I had lots of time to travel because you're working, but you have your weekends free, you have your evenings free. It's not like uni where you're constantly doing assignments or studying for exams. That bottom image there is me at Le Mans, and I was very, very, very sunburnt. I got the nickname Rote Tomate, which is red tomato. That stuck with me for most of my time I was at BMW, unfortunately. Anyway, so I just briefly mentioned I did work at BMW. From April 2017 to October 2017, I was in Munich working at the BMW Forschung und Innovation Zentrum, which is the Research Innovation Center in Munich. That was my RIIERP placement. However, I was there for 6 months. It was going to be 12 months with a thesis project, but that fell through. But I love being in Germany so much that I applied to more jobs on merit. This was without the aid of RIIERP. However, working at BMW and physically being in Germany as part of the RIIERP program helped me gain another internship at Alpina. If you guys might not know Alpina, if you don't know much in-depth knowledge about cars, Alpina are a tuner brand of BMW. They redo the engine, they redo the upholstery. They're very expensive, very fast vehicles, and a very small niche manufacturer. And it was absolutely amazing working there. I was there from November 2017 to December 2018. And that included an internship and subsequently a bachelor thesis as well. So what did I work on? Unfortunately, I can't show you the cool stuff because that is confidential. There are videos of test driving. So yeah, I did a lot of CAD work. I did a lot of test driving, but unfortunately I can't show those things. But just an overall summary at BMW. Ironically, I didn't work on BMW vehicles. I worked on Minis. I did a lot of thermal simulations for the Mini Clubman. mainly to do with how the exhaust system transfers heat to the underbody of the vehicle. A lot more of the exciting stuff was at Alpina though. So I worked on quite a number of vehicles, mainly to do with exhaust design. I worked on the Alpina B3, the Alpina B7, which is the 7 series. That sells in Australia for just over $400,000. So it's quite a expensive vehicle. And the Alpina XB7, that vehicle, which is shown at the bottom there, that only got revealed last night by Alpina. It's a very, very new vehicle. And I spent time working on the exhaust tips. So the 4 exhaust tips there, I did the initial designs for them. I'm not sure how they've been revised since I left, but they look similar to what I did. So I'd like to think to myself that those are my parts. But as I said, they're most likely being changed in some way. And lastly, at Alpina, I was also the vice versa chef. What does that mean? We always had an afternoon lunch on a Thursday at Alpina, and because I was the most junior person, I was the chef. So I cooked the sausage and the pretzels. So fun times. I wasn't very good at it though. And as I said, I did my bachelor thesis. I won't go too much in depth because it'll probably bore people, but I did acoustics of mufflers. I made a test rig and I did a lot of testing within the basement of Alpina. A quick interesting fact, all those tires you see there are all test tires. Those are the tires that they use all at test tracks around Europe, including the Nürburgring, Monza, Zandvoort in the Netherlands. So that's interesting.
Sorry, Harrison, you dropped out like maybe 5 seconds just before.
Yep. Am I back now?
Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah. I've got great internet in West Melbourne. So where did I live? I lived in Munich, obviously, when I was at BMW. However, at Alpina, I lived in Lindenberg, a very little town. Now, there's a big difference between the two. There's 1.5 million people in Munich. In Lindenberg, there's under 2,000 people. So you get to know everyone. I was known as the Australian man because apparently I hardly ever met anyone from Australia before, which is interesting. But it was very, very much like a family in Lindenberg. I lived with a very, very nice family. And we shared Christmases together, New Year's, birthdays, all of that. So it was an absolute great time. I'll quickly skip over these things. In terms of living in Munich, Munich's great. People are nice. They respect you. They're more than happy to answer questions you have. It is good to ask in German. However, everyone generally speaks English in Munich. There's many events. There's anything from Oktoberfest to you go to the museum, you go to sporting events. You can lay down in Olympia Park. It's a very casual city, and it felt great. The weather was great. It might snow. Snow's not great, but overall, I really enjoyed it. And once again, in regards to living in Lindenberg, it's completely different. You're living in practically a village. There's not public transport other than the regional bahn or the regional train that goes into Munich. You're pretty much between all the cornfields. Like that's how I rode to work. My transport in Germany was a bicycle. You can see on the bottom screen there, whenever it snowed, that was great because I'd get a wet bum. But it was really nice. You're pretty much in nature. You can see in the background the Bavarian Alps. It was really close to the border. And overall, just a really beautiful place to live. In terms of Lindenberg, as I said, it was very small, but however, I was lucky enough to be there for 2 Christmas markets, which were honestly put on just outside my front door where I lived. And pretty much everyone I saw there, I recognized at some point while I was there, which was great. And as I said, it comes back to that real family feeling. As I mentioned, I also traveled to other regions of Germany, which were all very close. You have the Neuschwanstein Castle, the Disney castle you might have seen before, and also Eagle's Nest, where that was Hitler's holiday house, which he only went to once or twice. They were within a 30-minute train ride away, and I actually went a couple of times because it was such a nice place to live. You can see in that top picture there how nice the landscape is. So getting to the living. So you might think, how much does it cost to live in Germany? It's cheaper than Australia, I'll tell you that. When I was at BMW offer accommodation for their workers. So initially I lived in like a share house with someone I found on a German share house website for about 3 or 4 weeks while my application was pending at the BMW apartments. When I did move in, it was very similar to a student accommodation you might find in Melbourne. It's a relatively small room, but it gives you all the necessities you need. I was paying 500 euros a month. Everything in Germany is done monthly in terms of payments. In terms of my pay, I was on, so in Germany as an intern, you either have voluntary internships or compulsory internships. Compulsory internships pay less than voluntary internships. I think that's just because everyone's got to do a compulsory one, whereas voluntary ones are considered, you know, people who they're getting the internships just out of merit. So I was on a voluntary internship, and I was quite lucky because my supervisor put me on that. He said, "Okay, cool, we'll put you on a voluntary internship to get more money." I was earning at BMW 1,300 euros per month. So my accommodation cost was under half of my pay. I was happy with that. I was able to put a lot of money towards travel. As I said, living costs are actually much cheaper. Shopping at Aldi, Lidl, those sort of shops for your groceries, I never spent more than 20 euros, which is about 30, 35 Australian dollars. And I didn't starve myself. I was very, very satisfied. Public transport in Munich as well. I mean, compared to Melbourne, it's flawless, and they have older vehicles as well. People are very, they're very nice on public transport, so to say. People actually spread out in carriages. People flow in, flow out. When I came back to Melbourne, I got so homesick about Germany because of just how well-mannered people were on public transport. Skip over this because Adam mentioned it a few times. There is a lot of paperwork to do in Germany. I had to go renew my residency permit 4 or 5 times actually when I was in Germany, and they were all fun times. With BMW, it wasn't too difficult because they had a huge HR department and they've done this all before. At Alpina, I was the first non-German resident working at the company, so it was pretty much all on my own to get everything organized because they weren't too sure what the process was. So that was interesting. So the last slide, I just want to make a point that if you do go overseas, wherever you end up, whether it's Germany or the States, you know, have fun, make connections. When I mean connections, I don't just mean networking. I mean, make friends. As you can see in this image here, these are just some of the people I spent my time with. First at BMW, I was with a former RMIT master's student named Saad. I don't have a photo of him, unfortunately, but he was by my side the whole time I was there. I worked with him at BMW, and when I went to Alpina, he was only 50 minutes away in Munich, and we went to the Monza GP. We went to all around Germany. So it was great to have that support there to begin with. When I was at Alpina, as I said, I lived with a family in Lindenberg, this little village. And I don't exaggerate, it was a family. We had the mother and the father lived in the detached house. The floor above me was the daughter and her husband and her young daughter. And on the top floor was the son and his long-term girlfriend. And we did everything together, whether that's Christmas, New Year's, Easter, birthdays. I was included in everything, and it was great. Unfortunately, about a week before I left Germany, they decided to get a little puppy. So I only got a week with the little dog you can see on the screen there before I had to leave. You might ask, what did I not enjoy about Germany? Short answer, snow. I hate snow. It's great to look at. However, as I said, I rode my bike everywhere. That was my main my main transport. Particularly living in a small village, the roads or the paths are not cleared of snow as often as you might get in a big city. So there was a lot of times where I was almost falling off my bike, and you can see that top image there. You might not be able to zoom in. However, I am very, very grumpy. in that image because I went to the Aldi next door and I bought some nice hot bread, and it's covered in snow and subsequently wet. Everyone at Alpina loved that image so much they actually framed it for me and gave it to me as a going away present. So that just summarizes that it was an absolutely great time. Would I go back to Germany and work full time? Yes, I would. Why haven't I applied? Simply with COVID right now, it's just not the right time. However, I'll look into it once the pandemic falls over and there's restrictions are lifted. So I'll stop sharing my screen now and pass it to Theerapong, where he will talk about going through the application process as a prospective student.
All right. Hi, everyone. So I'm Theerapong. Unfortunately, I don't have a presentation like Harrison, but I just talk like roughly about how to apply and the application process and the tips how to success in this program. So firstly, as Adam said, you need to prepare for transcript and CV and cover letters addressed to addressed to Professor Abantaliba. And that's a very important starting element that you need to prepare right now if you want to apply. And secondly, you need to prepare for your interviews. Firstly, the interviews relate to your chosen company. The tip is try to focus and prepare your background knowledge in relation to your chosen companies, and you need to focus on what backgrounds is important to your roles that you aim to for internship. And after that, if you got accepted to the program, so you wait for the company, right? And when you get called for the second interview, which is the interview with company, you need to prepare for the company background. That's very important. In addition, you need to prepare for some technical interview questions in relation to your background knowledge as well. For example, in my experience, I applied for Siemens, which is Siemens Energy and Gas Power. So my department is focused on develop and design in turbine modules in aerodynamics sectors. So what my task is focused on the designs, and they mentioned in the roles that they require Python skills. All right. So for example, they require Python skills. So your work is to prepare what is basics knowledge about Python skills, what to apply for, and work on it before you go into the interview. That will help you a lot. And that's the tips for application, I think. Basically, if you have any questions, you can ask at the end. And after that, the tips for when you apply for international students. So if anyone have like a question specifically for your visas and for the even the German visa or your Australian visa when you want to come back, so you can ask if you have any questions. And what else I can add? I think that's pretty much.
Yeah. Theerapong, where did you go and what did you do?
Oh, sorry about that. I forgot to introduce myself. So firstly, I am intern in Siemens Energy at Berlin, Germany for 1 year. And my department is aerodynamics in heavy duty turbine manufacturing full scales. And what I do is to work on Python development, software development, Python programming, working on the software assisting in turbine design and flow analysis. That's my job.
And what did you enjoy the most out of it?
Mostly doing on the software development and Python programs, like 90% in the company.
And what was the biggest culture shock when you were in Berlin or in Germany?
For me, I think the first thing is like language. Obviously, you need to adapt in like learning some basic German language. Otherwise, you can't like I think 50% people in Germany don't talk in English. So you need to attempt like, at some point to like order food and the numbers count and something like that. So that's the first thing. And second thing is about the document work that you need to deal with, like some counter, some officers in Germany because they don't speak English. That's quite challenge. You know that, Harrison.
Yeah, look, I'll just add on both those points in terms of language. For me, as an elective in my second year, so 2015, I did German 1 at RMIT as my elective, and I applied to the RIIERP program in 2016. I did that because I wanted to do the RIIERP program. I wanted to experience time. I wanted to work in Germany at some point. So when I went over there, I had some basic knowledge. I did use Duolingo and one of those language apps to sort of hopefully increase my skills. When I went over there, I thought I was better at German than I actually was. So it was a bit of a shock when I realized, oh, wow, I can't actually understand people as well as I thought. As I said, in Munich, though, everyone spoke English. However, I did try and talk in German. However, when I was in Alpena, in Buchloe, that was this little town where Alpena is based, everyone spoke German. In that family I lived with, there was only one person who spoke somewhat fluent English. So I was definitely speaking German a lot more daily than I was in Munich. In terms of the paperwork, if you go to Germany, you'll have to deal with the dreaded KVR. I probably can't tell you what that word is, that abbreviation, because it's a very, very long German word, but it's pretty much the immigration, the admin center of say Munich, where the KVR is. And that involves long lines, running through the door, pushing people out of the way to get at the front door of the officer, so you don't have to be waiting there for hours to get your papers signed. And there won't only be one paper, there will be at least 3 and maybe 4 lots of papers. So it's definitely a challenge, but don't let that scare you. The RIIERP team will help you, and your colleagues at the company where you'll be working at will also help you a lot as well.
Theerapong, do you have anything else you want to add?
So for you asked before, you want me to like mention about my my pay, right? So in terms of Siemens Energy, I live in Berlin branch, which is the headquarters of the heavy duty turbine. So I got paid around at the beginning I got paid 750 euros per month. But after you arrive at the company, you can like try to attempt to ask for additional funds. For example, for your living accommodation assistance. So you got like roughly around like 200 to 300 additional. So I got like gross, finally I got 950 per month living in Berlin. And in terms of the accommodation, I would say like you can find a lot of varieties range of the accommodation from like 400 euro per month to 1,000 euro per month, or even more than that, depends on what your choice. So I'm living at the, I think, center of Berlin near Central Station, sorry. And I pay like around 650 per month, include everything. Yeah. And in terms of living cost, I would say you can spend around 200 to 300 euro per month. Depends on your choice. If you cook a lot, like every day, like me, you can live with like 200 euro per month, even in Berlin, which is the capital. So grossly, I will have like 100 euro per month left for my like spending on my own traveling stuff. Yeah. Yeah,
Cool.
that's all.
All right. Well, we'll head to the Q&A section of our information session this evening. Thanks again, Adam and Theerapong, for giving your insight into the admin and also your student experience as well. So in terms of the Q&A, anyone who has been to our sessions before, we ask the questions through the chat. That way then not 20 or so people turning on their microphones. So please post your questions in the chat. And Adam, would you like to coordinate the questions and ask anything or answer anything that you would like and pass on the experience questions to either myself or Theerapong to answer?
Yeah, not a problem. So shoot your questions across in the chat. I'll read them out. Nothing's come through just yet. There you go. Cool. If you have dual citizenship with a European Union country, does that help with the application and visa process? Yes, it does. It greatly does, especially based on your dual citizenship with the host country. So it really depends on your citizenship and which country you get placed. But usually if you are in the EU, it makes it a lot easier to get a residency permit or a work permit. So you can usually bypass a lot of the processes that an Australian citizen would have to go through. So it does make it a lot easier. Please do disclose that in your application on the RIIERP so the professor can actually onboard you with the right process. Cool. Do you get to go with a partner for the RIIERP program? Do you get to go with, oh, okay. So I'm guessing it could be a partner. It's a no, because you only get placed as a student, as an individual, but it doesn't stop anyone visiting you or staying with you. But of course, they'll need to respect their own entry visa restrictions or permits. So yes, in a sense, a partner can definitely come with you, but unfortunately, they're going to be independent from the RIIERP process, the RIIERP placement, but that doesn't stop anyone coming to visit with you or stay with you. Okay. Can I only apply to the companies on the RIIERP list? Yes. Unfortunately, that RIIERP list is fully fledged. It's actually being there for the past few years. And then some years, those organizations do drop off, or they don't have any projects or any placements in the following year. But what you need to do in your application is disclose the type of industries you're interested in, what your academic background is, and where you want to go, and where you want to work in. Look for similar based companies and organizations, and then list those. But then state in your application, I've listed these, but I'm very happy to work for these companies if they're available, but in this field. So that's the whole point of this application, is that the first half of the year is getting into the RIIERP program, and the second half is the professor trying to find you a place. Heads up, everyone here. Sometimes when you get into the RIIERP program, the professor will try really hard to find a place and it won't be available. And it does happen year on and year out. Sometimes we'll try and place you, but sometimes it won't be available. Especially now with COVID-19, the professor is trying to place students, but he also needs to get guarantees that places will still occur in 2021. So watch this space. Everything's very tentative. We're giving a lot of benefit to the doubt this program will go ahead next year in 2021, especially we're watching travel restrictions. That's another big thing we need to look out for, is when can we start sending students abroad? Okay, next question. What are the chances looking for like applications in Germany next year? Cool, I just answered that question. Tentative, very, very tentative. I don't want to give you false hope. Right now, we're making sure that we can support students internationally. You'll still get your RMIT travel insurance. So that's why we need to make sure that we need to follow Australian government DFAT restrictions so that you can be covered based on our RMIT travel policy, as well as following Australian government policy as well. So yes, it's a bit of an interesting space right now. I'm always reading the news day in, day out. States are opening, states are closing. Travel may happen in 2021, travel may not happen. Right now, it's very benefit the doubt is given so that we can support you guys. So right now, don't think that it's going to be a very smooth process. We're just going to watch this space and give you the benefit of the doubt that you can put through an application, and we'll keep you informed throughout the process. All right. Are there ever large companies added to the RIIERP list? We usually have a lot of large companies, but I've noticed in the past, a lot of positions that are actually given and projects given are companies that are offshoots of big companies. A good example is Airbus Space and Defense. The professor does have those contacts there, but he also has contacts in smaller boutique manufacturing and organizations that actually serve those big companies. So yes, we have large companies, but there's also some really boutique small organizations that the professor does place. What sort of opportunities available for students to work in the United States? Last year, I'm looking at my US list. Not that many due to work permit visas stuff happening, being restricted. The last student that went to the US went to Auburn Hills, United States, or in FEV, a big automotive company. So that was the last company that a student went to in the US. Are spots open to all fields of engineering? Yes, they are, based on projects and placements. So yes, any engineering student, any STEM student, I even have business students apply because the professor does get linked up with positions or internships outside the STEM field. They're kind of rare, but it does happen. So yes, you definitely should apply if you're in the STEM field. Course cost fees, like for taking on MIT 2066 and 2084. I can't remember the exact fees, but they're a standard elective course fee. MIT 2066 will sit roughly, let me have a look. Fee. I actually do not have the price for 2020 or sorry, 2021. So what you need to do is double check where MIT 2066 sits within your degree structure, and that's where it's going to be charged. If you're an international student, it'd be a very standard elective course. If you're a domestic CSP, it'd be very standard as well. MIT 2084, let's double check that one. Okay, so 2084 is the postgraduate. That's going to be a standard course, the same fee structure as an elective for 24 credits. I actually don't have the price points, so I do apologize. So I want to do an internship in my third year. I should apply for in second year. If you are in a 4-year degree, a third year, if you're in a 4-year degree or 3-year degree, go for it. If you're in a 5-year degree, we definitely want you to be in your 4th or 5th year. The reason is when we do want to send students to a RIIERP program, our organization's placements actually want students to have a strong foundational knowledge. So that's why we expect students to at least complete 2/3 of the degree. So you need to be in your, complete your 3rd year, or again, your 4th and 5th, or complete your 2nd year applying for your 3rd. And if you're a master's student, you're good to go because we know that you've done an undergrad. Wow, heaps of messages. I'm gonna try and fly through this. All right. So I'm an international student, 3rd year of my course. I was planning to do a bachelor thesis project. So in my 4th year. Yes, please do apply. Clearly state that you want to do a bachelor's thesis project on a RIIERP program. And that's where the professor will try and find a project that you can complete your bachelor's thesis in. If you're a final year student, can you and should you apply for the program? Yes, you're very welcome to. Once again, you need to factor in a lot of different things. Some things I like to highlight is that if you're in your final year, it's actually a really good time to apply because it gives you the flexibility to extend your stay as a worker/holiday. You may get a job offer, you may push out your internship, but at the same token, you need to consider what opportunities are lost going and doing that abroad, in a sense that you could actually factor in applying for domestic graduate roles here in Australia. So it's not a perfect answer, but you need to put all your cards on the table and assess to yourself what do you want and what's important. Is it the cross-cultural skills? Is it working in a foreign country? Is it working for these companies? Or are you prioritizing your graduate outcomes as a domestic focused graduate? So looking for graduate roles within Australia. But then both things have pros and cons. like international experience, travel, cultural skills, language skills. Unbiased, I'd say go internationally, but at the same token, you need to factor in what's happening in today's geopolitical lifestyle, inclusive of COVID-19. A lot of things will be shut down, slowed down, harder, more expensive. There's going to be a few more hurdles, but it's not the end all. So yeah, my biggest tip is put everything on the table and really ask yourself what's important to you. I would say apply to the RIIERP program, but at the same token, you need to plan out where your career is taking you. All right. I'm an international student, my 3rd year. Would you recommend apply as soon as possible or after I graduate? As an international student, I'm going to let Theerapong answer this question in a second. Only I want to get your feel about your situation. I recommend doing it as a graduate only because once you finish your degree, let me make it clearer. So as an international student, you're on a student visa, and your student visa is tagged to your ECOE, your confirmation of enrollment. And that's based on you doing a full-time load at any Australian institution. So your COE gives you a student visa. Part of your COE is that you study full-time. What happens is if you do your RIIERP program, and if you don't have the capacity to re-enroll at RMIT as a full-time student, you're putting yourself at risk for not having a COE validated. And that means not getting your visa extended. So if you are going to go abroad, I'd recommend doing it as a graduate because you skip all that COE visa stuff. And that means you can go back home or you can reapply for a different visa to come back into Australia. If you do a RIIERP program and you complete your degree abroad, it means your COE, your confirmation enrollment, is complete. So you have no more subjects to complete after you finish your degree. And that means to DFAT, to immigration, is that you've completed your degree. You don't have a relevant student visa now to come back to Australia. So a lot of students get in this bit of a tricky situation where they applied for RIIERP, they're about to finish the degree, and when they want to come back to Australia, they're like, oh no, I can't re-enter Australia on a student visa. They have to investigate returning on a different visa. So that's something I want to flag with every international student. Highly recommend doing it as a graduate, or 2, make sure you have at least a full-time load to come back to. That's the most important takeaway. Theerapong, how did you go?
Yeah, for my views, I recommend you to, like Adam said, within your degrees. Otherwise, when you lost your ECOEs, so you're not a part of your program, and you will reduce a lot of choice for your internship because many internships require as a part of your degree. And yeah, I do recommend you apply as fast as possible within your degree. And for some like visas, you recommend for a competitive and applicant process? It depends on your 3 things. I think academic backgrounds and your CVs and your interviews. That's a key point for your competitive advantage in your applications. If you have a GPA, so if you have a high GPA, you have a high chance to get that. And
that's definitely seconded. The minimum GPA is 2.0. Our ethos is GPA is not everything, but we do look at that's how we scale you guys. The higher the GPA, the better you are to get placed. But of course, we have students with low GPAs who have great career, interpersonal skills, communication skills, leadership skills. GPA is not the end all. It gives a good indication of your academic component, but we want to send students who are good ambassadors, who are switched on, and who are very academic led as well. So it's a bit of a mixture. So don't be so focused on the GPA. We're also looking for well-rounded students. So yeah. I'll keep going to questions. There's a question for Harrison and Theerapong. How long did it take to adjust to the language barrier?
Harrison first.
Yeah, so as I said, I did do an Intro to German course. It was very, very basic though. However, how long does it take to adapt to the language barrier? It's how much you try to adapt yourself. I knew people who did the RIIERP program. I knew people who were international students or international workers who did never attempted to speak German. You might get some colleagues, some fellow co-workers who are on your back about speaking German. Others will speak to you in English. So take it upon yourself to try and speak in German. German isn't, I mean, it's not one of considered the most difficult languages. But even just ordering, the best way I learned was doing the simple task, going to a cafe and ordering. It's like a sentence. If you stuff up, just point to what you want, right? But it's like I said, how long does it take to you to adapt? It's how much you apply yourself. So put in the effort and it won't be an issue.
Yeah, I agree with Harrison. It doesn't take long for me to just like jump in and order food at Germany. So you just don't be scared and don't afraid about that. Just like apply it, and when you get it, you will know it. And for visa process, for me, international student, it take quite long. It depends on your country as well. If for my case, it's Thailand. So Thailand is listed as one of the most difficult country to get German visas. So for me, it takes like from December to February, around like 4 months. I would say 3 or 4 months. So it depends on your country, I would say.
Yeah, to add, as an Australian citizen myself, it wasn't that long. First of all, I didn't actually need a visa, so to say. I just needed to get a residency permit. So as an Australian, you can go to Germany and be there for 3 months without any sort of visa or permit. However, you can't work in that time. So what I did, and it probably is the same with many other Australian citizens going to Germany, is that you enter the country as just a regular Joe, and then in that time period you have 3 months, although you won't take the whole 3 months. You work with your company to get the paperwork. This is to apply for the residency at the KVR, or the immigration office within the city you're at. There is initial paperwork, which I think Adam covered in his presentation. That was the biggest delay for me, and it wasn't actually the company, it was actually RMIT that took the longest. Adam, you weren't there at the time, so I'm sure it's improved and a lot faster now. But it gets a bit difficult because you have to have, the company has to sign it. There's obviously a huge time zone gap. Then RMIT have to sign it, and that going back and forth, it can take about a week or two, depending on how complex the communication is. But other than that, in terms of a residency permit, yeah, I bought my flights. I rocked up in Germany. I went and had lunch with my colleagues the next day, and then the day after that, I went down to the immigration office, or the KVR. I got my residency permit, and I started at BMW the following Monday, like a couple days after it. And in that time, I just went and did tourist things around Munich. So in my regards, it wasn't that difficult. Obviously, when you're in the bureaucratic office environment of the immigration office, it is a bit boring, but I mean, it's like a day of your time, and after that, you're a worker in Germany. You have permission to work in Germany, and you're going to absolutely love the time when you're there.
Okay. My biggest tip is don't worry too much about the visa stuff now. It's actually not that competitive. A good ambassador for RMIT who is very focused on where they want to go. The hard bit is, the competitive bit isn't really the hard bit is being placed. That's when the professor in the next 6 months tries to find a placement. So yes, getting into the RIIERP program, so within the first 6 months after your interview, very easy. It's more about the professor therefore needs to find a place relevant to you, and if it is available, that's the hardest bit. The hardest, and that the reason is I'm actually not in that loop. It's actually the professor finding those placements. So you'd be asking me a lot of questions like, oh, Adam, how's it going with the placement? Or have you heard anything? And I'd say, unfortunately, nothing. the professors, and then sometimes out of the blue, you just get an email say, hi, you have an interview, the paperwork's coming, and it's go, go, go. So to get in the RIIERP program, pretty easy. But getting a place, getting all the paperwork, going for the visa, getting your residency, all that other logistical nightmare, that will take some time. And that's where the hardest bit comes into play with the RIIERP program. All right, so...
Yeah, I was just going to add to that, Adam, to give a brief timeline of what happened with me. In 2016, I applied by the deadline, whenever that was semester 1. I had an interview, or all the interviews occurred in September of that year. I got told of my acceptance in the program roughly end of September, early October. And then it was just a waiting game. It was over the Christmas break, still waiting, nothing. I contacted the professor maybe once, because I knew there would have been a number of people. I wasn't too fussed. I was on school holidays, uni holidays. And it was in January. I just come back from a holiday down in Brisbane. And I get a call from the professor saying, are you interested in an opportunity at BMW? And I said, yes. And that afternoon, he had sent me through all the information. And then it was, like Adam said, go, go, go with getting all the documentation ready. And then it was quite flexible with my supervisor. He was a really, really nice person. And then we pretty much just negotiated a starting date that would be easiest for me to get everything in order. So I got maybe midway through January, the offer from Untitled. I didn't actually have to do an interview, luckily. And then I started on April the 14th, I think, from memory, or that's when I was supposed to officially start. So I had about maybe 2, maximum 3 months to organize myself, which was great. And in that time, obviously enrolled in the RIIERP RMIT course. I booked my flights, got my insurance together, and any other necessities I needed to organize.
And following that, trips usually they start whenever and wherever. So you can disclose when you want to, but benefit of the doubt needs to be given to you in the sense that please do re-enroll like you usually would next year and the following year until you graduate. And then cross your fingers, you get placed, and then you get the paperwork. And that's when you'll need to manipulate your enrollment. So we have a lot of students that don't enroll in semester 1 of 2021 and semester 2, 2021. Just make sure you're enrolled for the year, and then cross your fingers you get placed before any census dates. So that's my biggest takeaway. So some of them have started. The earliest one was we had interviews in July of last year, and the professor had a place ready in November, and it was a really quick turnaround. And then we had students starting in January, February, but they mostly start, February and March. They keep in mind, most of the programs get placed roughly in Europe, and they don't actually have a Christmas break. They have a very small break, and everything's business as usual. So we have students maybe starting just before Christmas, or even sometimes after Christmas or after New Year's Eve. So yeah, they do vary.
We'll have one more question, Adam, and then we'll wrap it up.
Yeah, cool. Anyone else have any questions? If you do have any specific questions for me, shoot me an email at riip@rmit.edu.au.
All right, last chance for any more questions.
Any more question about international students, really? Okay.
All right, well, we will answer that last one from Guillaume. How much of a learning curve is it? Well, first of all, you are an intern. Second of all, you are also working full time. So what does that mean? It means that you're not expected to know what you're doing straight away, like an expert, because you're an intern. However, since you are working full time, you need to put in the effort to apply yourself, because you are a worker. You're no different to the person sitting next to you. So take the time complete your tasks. Germany has very strict working hours, so there's no chance you'll work overtime. Like they'll literally kick you out of the building if you're approaching, going past say 6 p.m. or a certain time period. But no, that at BMW, everyone was very supportive. I was doing thermal simulations, which I had never, ever done before, and I probably won't do them again. But I had all the support there from everyone. They were more than happy to help me. And it was the same at Alpina as well. So it's not a huge learning curve, but don't just go there for a holiday. And a tip in the interview, don't make that impression either. Don't make it go there for a holiday. You need to show that you have a passion. You want to gain cultural experience. You want to gain valuable industry or international industry experience as well. It's not a holiday, although obviously you have time to see the sites around the country you're in.
And that's a really good tip. I actually am on the interview panel, and the professor is super strict. If you come across along the lines of anything holiday-esque, it's pretty much a big no. And also, do dress to impress. So please make sure you dress up, formal attire. I shouldn't be telling you this, but we've had students rock up to interview in a very casual, and the professor actually sends them back and gets them to come in formal attire. So yes, please do dress to impress. It's just like going for a real job interview. Theerapong, you're at the learning curve.
Yeah, just like want to add about my experience. So in my case, I never known about Python programming before, even I started internship. So how are I gonna go and work full time about that task? So what I recommend you is to don't fear, and start learning by yourself before you start the placement. And that can teach you and guide you for the basic knowledge. But after when you jump to the company, you have to work on your own, like study by yourself, work independently. That's the culture of Germany company. No one gonna like teach you every step by step. They're gonna let you and work on your task, and that's your challenge. And that's a good experience that you can work on your own and you will know everything because you're doing from scratch. Don't be afraid. Everyone gonna help you. If you have any struggling, you can ask for your colleagues. They are very supportive in Siemens, and that's all.
And that's something the professor also highlights when he gets you a place. He'll actually guide you and inform you what you need to know. If usually, because the professor has these great contacts, there's not usually a secondary interview, but sometimes there will be, but he'll coach you, especially what to be learnt and what is known for that second interview. And thirdly, he knows he's sending you as an intern. So he doesn't expect you to be a professional, like to be the expert, but he wants you to be very proactive, to be a strong networker, always say yes to any projects or any leads, and just be a good rep. That's the best way of having focus on the RIIERP program, is just being a very productive individual.
And before I wrap it up, I just want to make it clear. We keep saying the Professor Abendtreiber. He's not a scary person. He's very nice. We're speaking like he's just some upward being, but no, he's extremely nice. But he does like to take things formally. But no, he's very, very, very nice. If you're lucky as well, when you're at your placement, he'll come visit you in person, because he does like to travel to continue those connections. But don't think he's some scary person. Professor Abendtreiber is one of the nicest people you'll meet.
Yeah, super sweet guy. Very funny sense of humor, like very sharp. So yeah, don't be afraid.
Cool. All right, well, I'll wrap it up there because we've gone past 7 p.m. I broke my promise. Thank you, Adam and Theerapong, for joining us. As I said, this will be our final online session, just due to people having exams and assignments due soon. I hope everyone learned about the RIIERP program. I think it's something students don't know much about, to be honest. It was one of the reasons why I came to RMIT. I'm from far north Queensland, so I traveled a long way to RMIT, and RIIERP was one of the main reasons I came to the university. But thank you again for joining the session tonight. We do have our website, RMIT maea.com, where you'll see any more upcoming events and also to sign up to the Engineering Association. As we won't be hosting any more larger events, we will be active on our Discord, and we'll probably be playing games, talking about exams, giving help for anyone who's maybe struggling with a concept. So please jump on there, communicate with everyone. It will help a lot with your mental health as well, obviously, as everyone's still stuck at home. I believe those links have been posted in the chat, so just have a click on those in your free time or copy and paste them. Thanks again for joining us, Adam and Theerapong, and thank you again for everyone who is still in the session. MAA will be providing more events next semester similar to this. As I mentioned at the start, we want to continue to connect our members and RMIT students with industry. I hope everyone has an amazing evening and good luck with your upcoming exams and assignments.
Thanks, guys. Good luck and all the best.